All right, today we're breaking down a new scientific study that could completely change how we all think about cannabis. We're talking about a move away from guesswork and into a world of clear, standardized measurement. Let's get into it. So let's dive right in with a question that, believe it or not, has been surprisingly difficult to answer with real science. For something that millions of people use, that lack of clarity has been a pretty big problem for public health. You know, as cannabis becomes more and more available in legal markets all over the world, the need for some clear, science-backed guidance is more important than ever. The old ways of talking about it just aren't going to cut it anymore. So to deal with this, researchers from the University of Bath proposed a solution that's actually inspired by a concept we're all pretty familiar with, right? We all get what a standard drink is. You know, a can of beer is different from a shot of whiskey. The idea here is to apply that same exact logic to cannabis. Okay, so let's get to the absolute core of the issue here. Why are the old ways of measuring cannabis use just not working? Well, it turns out that simply counting how many joints someone has is a pretty terrible way to figure out their actual intake. And this slide really shows you the key challenge. See, not all cannabis products are created equal. The quantity, one joint, one edible, that doesn't really tell you anything about its potency. And potency is all about the percentage of THC, which is the main psychoactive compound. And listen, we're not talking about a small difference here. The THC percentage in cannabis has been climbing for decades. And the research is pretty clear. There's a direct link between these high-potency products and some significant health risks like cannabis use disorder. So what's the solution? Well, faced with these rising potency levels and really vague measurements, these researchers developed a simple but really powerful new concept that could change the whole game. And this illustrates the idea perfectly. A single, standard unit to measure the active ingredient, THC. Honestly, you can think of it like a calorie count, but for cannabis. It's a way to finally make a real apples-to-apples comparison between totally different products. As the lead researcher Tom Freeman puts it, the goal here is all about empowerment through information. It's about giving people the tools they need to actually understand what they're consuming so they can make choices that are right for them. So the crucial point is, how does this new unit actually apply to someone's personal use? I mean, a standard unit is only really helpful if we know how to use it, right? And this is where the research gets super practical. Just look at this table. It shows a dramatic difference. A single joint can vary wildly in its dose of THC units. A joint with some strong, modern cannabis could pack in almost 13 THC units, but a weaker one, maybe less than 4. That's a huge difference from the same amount of product. Okay, so after a 4-year study, the researchers landed on this specific number as a recommended weekly guideline. They suggest adults should aim for a maximum of 8 standard THC units per week to really lower their risk of running into health problems. And here is the why behind that number, and it's pretty stark. In their study, a whopping 70% of the adults who went over this 8-unit limit showed signs of cannabis use disorder. That data draws a very clear line between a certain level of consumption and an increased risk. So let's zoom out a bit and see how this all fits into the bigger picture of public health and safety. Because this is about more than just an individual's choice. It's about creating a smarter framework for everyone. The study's lead author, Rachel Lees-Thorne, emphasizes that this is all about practical harm reduction. Look, she's saying the only completely safe option is to not use it all. But for people who choose to use cannabis, this tool is designed to help them do it more safely. So this gives people tangible steps they can actually take to make safer choices. You can pick lower THC products, you can just use less overall, and maybe most importantly, you can track your intake to stay within that recommended weekly guideline. However, it's really important to add some nuance here. Other experts are quick to point out that THC is just one part of a very complex plant. Cannabis has over 144 active compounds called cannabinoids, so it's a lot more complicated than alcohol. But even with that complexity, the consensus seems to be that this is a vital first step forward. It's a foundation, a starting point, that can be built on as our understanding of this plant continues to grow. And that leaves us with this final thought. Could this one simple unit be the key to navigating a whole new era of legal cannabis? It really has the potential to empower all of us, guide doctors, and help shape smarter public policy for years to come.